Hey, and good Thursday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel with the Weather Report, your no-nonsense, straightforward, not hyped, in-your-face weather report that keeps you informed. Our motto is real simple. We keep you prepared and not scared. And we're going to go through everything we're expecting right now. I tell you, still continuing with this very unusual weather pattern here across the country is the fact that we're going to go kind of from one extreme where we were kind of below normal to some heat. And boy, things look like it's going to linger for a little bit as we go through. I'm also seeing indications of a pattern change. I'm going to show you the latest American GFS as we go later in the month. I think this big ridge, which is really not just impacting the United States, but also going to be Canada going into next week, it's going to start to break down, and that'll allow for a little more progressive weather pattern across the country. And I think the tropics are also going to start to heat up a little bit as well. Now, before we get into this full report, if you are new to the channel, just kind of going through and you see us here, if you please do me a favor, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you like what you see here, please leave me a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. It does help with the algorithm. All right, let's go talk about our highs and lows out there for yesterday. Phoenix and Tulsa and Gillibrand Bend and Casa Grande. Well, we'll say Phoenix for right now. 108 was the hot temperature yesterday. And Davis, West Virginia was 30, as well as Red Feather Lake out in Colorado was also 30. So those are our highs and lows from yesterday. All right, let's go take a look at our current map right now across the country here, kind of get an idea what's going on. Again, we're seeing pretty decent weather here across the east. Look at all the high pressure here across the eastern third of the United States. Very nice weather. Unsettled weather out here in the west. Oregon, heading over into the interior sections of Montana, heading over toward Wyoming and into the Dakotas there. As we continue this little weakness out here that continues to eject these little systems. We're going to watch some active weather up here as well for some thunderstorms here for this afternoon. A little unsettled weather down there in South Florida. That stationary boundary is going to be a bit of a trigger for some more heavy rains down that way, especially toward the Miami area. So watch out for that for the next couple of days as well. All righty, let's take a look. Right now, we're looking pretty good here on the radar, so you don't have to worry about the radar. Let's go watch some warnings, as we are looking at some fog up here across areas of Minnesota and Wisconsin this morning. Got some flash flood watches here across parts of Utah and Colorado, as well as into Oregon. That's where some of that, again, that energy that moved in off the west coast yesterday continues to move on inland there. And otherwise, the rest of the country really not looking all that bad here for today. Now, we did officially get this. This actually popped up yesterday late. So technically speaking, the peak of the Hurricane Center on season on September the 10th did have some sort of activity to track, because this posted late yesterday. So I was mentioning yesterday that I had not seen a day on the 10th, the official peak of the hurricane, when there wasn't something we were tracking. So that was posted, so it did meet the bill. So we got a long ways to watch that one, folks. Again, about the wave activity I think is going to get better. The reason for that is if you've watched me in the past, I've been talking about all the Saharan dust, not seeing as much. It's just not as much showing up out here. So it's starting to clear out a little bit. So the environment for the tropical waves coming off the African coast is going to be a little bit better, being able to survive. So that's what we got, that one coming through. We got a tropical wave here to watch. Again, the rest of the Caribbean looks good. Gulf looks pretty good. But the conditions here in the Gulf are going to improve as well. The wind shear is not going to be as bad here as we go into the end of the month. And we'll be able to watch some of these tropical waves coming off. That'll be a little more have a better chance to develop. So this is what we're seeing now. With that being said, even though the intertropical convergence zone is going to be heating up a little bit, we're still looking at this ridge over here, and the weakness is still over here. And as long as that weakness stays there, again, you see where this one is kind of coming on through here, picking up on some of these tropical waves here toward the end of the period of the next 7 days. Finally locks in on one, and it drifts it to the north, and it's heading toward that weakness, heading to that path of least resistance. So we will continue to monitor this, but a nice big spread in here if it gets something developed. There's another wave coming behind that one. So, I do suspect by the end of the month and going into early October, we're really going to start cranking a little bit more out in the tropics. So stay tuned out there. Now, as far as the Pacific side, we're still tracking to see if we're going to get Mario here to develop here off the Mexican coast, still showing 90% chance there as we look at this cluster of storms out here that may form briefly into Mario before it kind of pulls on off into colder waters. We'll see if we get that system to get fired up there. I do suspect there on that side, we're going to probably see activity out here begin to lessen because of the water temperature. You got La Nina kicking up out here, and that typically starts to inhibit some of the development out there. So I think the Pacific, especially as we go into October, will settle down because of the developing La Nina. But it has the opposite effect on the Atlantic side. When the La Nina kicks in, the Atlantic side typically starts to fire up. So we will watch that very closely indeed. All right, let's go take a look at your thunderstorms threat here for today. Let's go switch over to that. Here we go. As we do have a pretty good large area here of marginal severe weather here from New Mexico all the way to the Canadian border. You've got a little area there of slight risk from Montana coming into North Dakota. Again, that's where that energy that's kind of pulling on out there. And it's still warm enough to get some pretty good thunderstorms up through this zone here for today. Let's break it down by the category here. Tornado risk, not have to worry about that. Not a big deal. It's going to be wind and hail. Obviously, that yellow is 15%. That's going to be through Montana and into North Dakota. And we see the brown, that's 5%, extending from Minnesota down to New Mexico. And then the hail threat, that's going to be the highest, obviously, up here toward Montana and into North Dakota. So that's what we're seeing for your day one outlook for severe weather for today. How about day two? Well, still got some marginal up here across Montana and the Dakotas and back over here toward Colorado and back toward the Four Corners region again. General thunderstorm threat here across the mid-south and into the areas of Florida, and it's starting to creep up here into the areas of the Great Lakes as well. How about day three? All right, now we're starting to get some rain showing up here to the northeast. Been a while since they've seen that. General thunderstorm threat out there, and we got a marginal risk here on the foothills coming out of the Rockies here of Colorado and New Mexico going into Saturday. So this is Saturday. I'll repeat that. This is for your Friday, and again, this is for today. So there's your three right there. Let's talk about the flooding possibilities there. Again, the big trouble spot is going to be down here towards South Florida. That's where that stationary boundary is. So some flooding will be a problem down there. Everybody else will be pretty much isolated in those green areas. Again, that's less than 5%. But going into tomorrow, it looks like we got to watch the areas here in Colorado and in New Mexico. Albuquerque's in this as well. Could see some flooding with some additional monsoon moisture kind of kicking up a little bit more there across the southwest. South Florida still looking at that possibility as well, going for your Friday. And how about going into Saturday? Saturday, this moves out. Still got South Florida with heavy rains. And we're looking at Kansas into Texas and into New Mexico. Again, we start seeing the yellow. I start paying attention a little bit more for some flooding, especially as bad as the flooding has been this past year. Been very, very busy out there with that. All right, so let's talk about the model data. Let's go look at that. Let's go switch over to that. We're going to look at your NAM first, your intermediate model, and then we're going to take you through the GFS model today. All right. All right, so let's go take a look at that. As soon as I scroll down to it, my thing's messing up here. Sorry about that. I gotta get a new mouse. Here we go. All right, here we go. So here we go. Again, we're gonna be watching out here in the plains. Obviously, we're watching this swirl out here. So this is that energy pulling out, and that's what's going to set up the fire. The storms out here across Montana and the Dakotas. That really there you see kind of lighting up there, kind of late going into Saturday, going into the second half of the weekend, or going into Saturday. But not showing all that much. Got no storm system coming off the west coast here. South looking good. Northeast still looking pretty good. No problems out there. But definitely seeing a little more monsoon moisture. See some of the rains here across Colorado. See the rains firing up there. Boom, right around the foot range, and then kind of pulling on out. That's what we'll continue to see for today and going into tomorrow and kind of linger in for the next 3 days. So all the actions continue to stay out in the west. Obviously, that's where the heavier rains are going to be. Remember, we had that bullseye showing up down there toward Colorado and New Mexico. You see the heavy rains there. Oregon, they got the flash flood watches there. You see the heavy rains up there. And the heavy rains coming out of Montana and going into the Dakotas, especially North Dakota. That's pretty hot, 7 inches up there. Wow, pretty good rains there. I don't know if this south moisture is going to really fire up anything. It's a few showers in Tennessee this morning, but I'm expecting that to remain dry. Look, a lot of the country is really looking pretty dry going into your Saturday. All right, temperature-wise, again, the big story is going to be the heat in the middle of the country. This is really going to pick up, especially going into next week as we go into that period. So, again, here's your 5 o'clock temperatures here. We're going to see the temperatures really start to heat up here across Texas and in through the high plains here as we go into this upcoming weekend. And as we go into your Friday, look at this, 97, 98, 93, 95. Still looking at the heat there. That's continuing to be there. And then going into your Saturday afternoon, again, looking at a lot of 90s in here, going up through Minnesota all the way down toward Texas. So cooler out in the Intermountain region. The Northeast not looking bad. We're warming up across the Southeast. A lot of the West not looking too bad with the temperatures there. All right, so let's talk about the expected potential change in our weather pattern. Okay, we're looking at the 500 anomaly map. We're tracking the highs and lows. We're trying to get an idea of what's going on. When you see the reds and yellows like that going next week, that is something right there. Let me freeze that right there. I'm going to bring this back here a little bit, Let's back this back a little bit here. And this is like for Monday. I mean, you got a jet stream is going way up here. We got a couple little weak disturbances up underneath that ridge, but a huge ridge here, but covering just about all the North American continent. I mean, this thing is huge, just absolutely huge. But watch what happens here as we go forward. We're going to see if this continues to be a continuity thing here when I get back next week. So we got this trough coming down here. It looks like this is something that's just been hitting on for the last couple of days. At some time, either right around the equinox or so, or on the 22nd, this is the 20th, we get some sort of cool down here across the east. So, and the fact that we've had this persistent eastern troughiness really for going back weeks, I probably suspect that's probably happened. But there's the ridge there. But look what happens here as we go toward the end of this thing. Notice those oranges, they start disappearing. You see a lot more troughiness there. Look at this. Now we get a little more progressive pattern here. So and that's what happens when you make the transition from summer to fall. You get a little more progressive pattern. The jet stream starts to lower out of Canada, starts making its way further and further south. So that's some indications of that going on. Also on top of that, again, this is just a long-range progression. You see something tropical. You see a couple things out here, tropical trying to develop. Again, it's not saying this is going to happen, but you see one there. You see something here trying to develop in the Gulf. The winds in the Gulf are going to become less wind shear. We've been dealing with a lot here, so it becomes a little more conducive for development. So again, we got to watch closely as we go in toward the end of the month. This is going towards September the 26th that we're going to have to deal with little changes taking place. So just stay tuned for that as we get closer to that. All right. So let's go take a look here at the next 7 days. Again, a lot of the action is going to be out here in the west the next 7 days. It really is. Monsoonal flow, thunderstorms kind of rolling out of the Rockies into the high plains in the south. The southeast is going to stay dry. The northeast is going to stay dry. You see here's storm system coming up on the Pacific Northwest with some rain going into the weekend on Sunday and that moving inland there. But that's where the action is going to be. Out here in the west, in the plains, the intermountain region, the high region, there's going to be pretty active weather-wise. But a lot of the east is going to stay dry, and drought conditions are going to be expanding. So an update on the drought conditions will come out today. I'll be watching that closely, and when I get back from vacation, it'll be interesting to see what kind of change we have coming up from this week compared to next week across the middle of the country. All right, so let's go take a look at the temperatures here. That's the big story here. This is Saturday. Look at this. This is the American GFS model here showing 100-degree temperatures into Iowa. Now, this may be a little overdone, but it just, regardless, it's going to be hot, okay? From North Dakota all the way to the Gulf Coast on September the 13th. So above normal temperatures there on your Saturday. Going into the second half of your weekend here on Sunday. Again, still look at this here, 94 up all the way to the Canadian border here, 99, 98 degrees in Illinois, 100 degrees down near Memphis, so we got the heat here. Northeast looking good, 70s. Intermountain region not looking too bad, a lot of 70s out there, some cool little 50s. See some 50s out here for highs out here in Washington State. So a little cool down with that middle system moving in over the weekend. And then as we go into your Monday afternoon, still look at all that purple. You know, it's like, okay, I thought we were done with summer. Well, summer says I'm not done just yet. So it's going to continue to linger there for us going into Monday. How about Tuesday? Let's go check out Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, still, again, high plains. Starts to shift a little bit further to the east, starts coming into the Midwest a little more the southeast getting on this. We're kind of cool along the eastern seaboard there. We start kind of heating up there on your Tuesday. Going into your Wednesday, see a little more of the southeast, a little more Georgia getting on this, but still look how much of the country, I'd say about, 35% still holding on to the heat there. We're cool. Look at the 40s out here across Montana. They're going to go from hot to cold. They're kind of hot today. They're going to be cooling off here going into the middle of next week, going into Wednesday. And then we'll take this out to Friday. We'll take this out to Friday next week here. And we start, there's a cold front. You see the cold front right there. So we start beating back that heat just a little bit as that cool air begins to move off toward the east. So we kind of beat that heat back here going toward the end of next week. Again, this goes into September the 19th. September the 19th. So that is our days for all of next week. All right, so let's take a look at the climate outlook. Obviously, you know what this is going to show. Bam! I mean, just unreal. We're going to continue with that heat here across a big part of the country. Just plain old HOT, especially. I suspect we're going to set a lot of record highs here for next week in that zone. So Just get ready for that. And again, that's going to continue right into the 24th. Now, hopefully toward the 23rd, 24th, if the pattern change is taking place, this map will start to change a little bit in the days ahead. We will see. But for right now, it looks like we're going to continue warm. As much as we were below normal, all the blue we had in August and early September, looks like we're going to have an extended period of some warm weather. We're going to have to watch the drought conditions. Again, you're seeing this dry weather here across the east. The south central, we're a little wet out here, a little dry out here in the west, but we got to watch for drought conditions starting to expand across the southeast, especially, and into the Midwest. And there goes your taking out from the 18th to the 24th there, looking at still wet weather there across the high plains and heading into the southwest. So again, not looking too bad. It's just no major storm systems. That's it. It's just the heat. That's the thing I'm just tired of. And again, it really looks like starting to see those indications. I know we've been talking about it for a while, that we're going to see the tropics start to tick up. We're going to pay the piper for this. And, the whole purpose of the tropics, of hurricanes, is to keep the heat imbalance from the tropics and transport it poleward. And I think we're going to see that, especially going to monitor the Gulf. The heat across the southeast is important because it means the Gulf is not going to cool off as we go into early October. That's what's going to happen there. And that's going to mean anything that gets in there will have that supercharged fuel to strengthen rapidly if we get something to come into the Gulf. So that's my main concern there. Again, appreciate everybody checking us out here for your update here for today. Again, appreciate it. You guys have a great and safe weekend. We will be back with the weather report on September the 23rd. I'll be taking a vacation. Looking forward to that. And look for the rebrand. We're going to rebrand from Weather Nerds Unite to Majestic Weather coming in October. We're going to do the rebrand here and probably do some ad buys and try to reestablish ourselves as the YouTube algorithm has pretty much said, I'm done showing your stuff. So we'll have to try to fight back a little bit. All right, that's y'all's update for now. You guys take it easy. We can stay safe, and we'll see you on the 23rd of September. You guys take it easy. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.